anticoagulants, thrombolytic, and antiplatelet drugs. And as you know, we have lecture objectives that you must know the classification of anti-clotting drugs, mechanism of action of different anti-clotting drugs, and uh, there are some examples in which we'll have to differentiate between two drugs. So these are the lecture objectives. Now this is the classification. Anti-clotting drugs, basically we have three major groups: anticoagulants, thrombolytics, and antiplatelet drugs. So we are going to discuss one by one. Before discussing the different drugs, we must know that how the process of coagulation starts. When there is a damage in the vessel, what happens? Initially, vessel try to conceal, try to stop bleeding from the damaging area by trying to constrict the vessel. But if the damage is larger than in which vascular response cannot control that bleeding, the second step is the platelet starts aggregation at the site of damaged area. So we can say platelet aggregation is the first step towards the formation of clot. And the third, after platelet aggregation, normal cascade reaction towards the coagulation starts. And ultimately, this clot has to be dissolved, otherwise, it will produce the damaging effect. So, before discussing drugs, this slide is very much important. Why? Because you can see there are two pathways, intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway, and we have no problem whether intrinsic pathway or extrinsic pathway. Ultimate goal of intrinsic pathway or extrinsic pathway is to activate factor 10. Both pathways are responsible to activate factor 10. Why this activation of factor 10 is necessary? Because this activated factor 10 is going to activate prothrombin into thrombin, right? This is factor 2. And this thrombin basically is responsible to activate fibrinogen into fibrin threads. So this fibrin basically is responsible to form the clot. So we can say in clot formation, fibrin has the key role. So how fibrin thread is formed, how fibrin clot is formed when thrombin is going to activate fibrinogen. And how thrombin is activated? Thrombin is activated through activation of factor 10. So why this slide is important? Because if we want to stop the clot phenomenon, we have different options. Number one option is we can inhibit the activity of factor 10, because factor 10 is responsible to activate prothrombin into thrombin. When there is no thrombin activation, there is no fibrin formation. So this is one of the steps. Second is a group can stop the activity of thrombin. And the third possible mechanism could be the dissolving of clot. If fibrin clot has been formed, we can use the drug that can dissolve the clot. Okay. Now, one by one, because we have three major groups: anticoagulants, thrombolytics, and antiplatelets. This is one of the first group, anticoagulants. And in anticoagulants, we have again heparin, and there is a group of drugs that can directly inhibit thrombin. Now you can realize the importance of that slide, because thrombin is the key, because thrombin is responsible to start formation of clot. So we have a group that can directly inhibit the thrombin activity, and warfarin. Now, one by one, heparin is highly molecular weight, large sulfated polysaccharide polymer obtained from animal source. Is there any importance to know high molecular weight heparin? Is this the important point? Yes, because this high molecular weight heparin cannot process the placental barrier. So that is why heparin can be given safely during pregnancy. Heparin is highly acidic and can be neutralized by basic molecules that is called protamine. This point is also important because when there is an overdose of heparin, increased chances of bleeding. So how we can overcome the effect that can be produced by the overdose of heparin by giving antidote that is protamine. So protamine can neutralize this acidic heparin. So we can say protamine is the antidote for heparin toxicity. How heparin is given intravenously or subcutaneously. One important point, we usually avoid to give the intramuscular injection of heparin because it may cause hematoma. How heparin is going to prevent formation of clot? Heparin binds to endogenous antithrombin 3, and this heparin antithrombin 3 complex combined with an irreversibly inactivate thrombin and several other factors like factor 10. But mainly, now here you must focus on this point. This heparin mainly inactivate thrombin, which is factor 2, but it can also inhibit the activity of factor 10. In the presence of heparin, antithrombin 3 proteolyzes thrombin and factor 10 approximately 1,000 times faster than in absence. The action of heparin is monitored with the activated partial thromboplastin time, which is a laboratory test. Because this heparin can cause bleeding, so we must monitor the heparin activity during its administration, right? So this is important. And one important point you try to remember, any drug or any group that can inhibit the activity of thrombin can be monitored, right? That we will discuss later on. Now, heparin, high molecular weight. Now, this low molecular weight heparin, what do you mean by low molecular weight heparin? Fractions of high molecular weight heparin. Like, key example is enoxaparin, and there is another example that is called dalteparin. What are the advantages of using low molecular weight heparin? Because in our cardiac unit, in our clinical setup, generally we are using low molecular weight heparin. Why? Because it has greater bioavailability, longer duration of action. Doses can be given less frequent because of its longer duration of action, once or twice a day. It favors in favor of patient compliance. They are given subcutaneously. There is an example. Fondaparinux is a small synthetic drug that is administered subcutaneously once daily. Now, low molecular weight heparin and fondaparinux like unfractionated heparin, mechanism of action is same, just like unfractionated heparin, bind with antithrombin 3, and these complexes have the same inhibitory effect on factor 10 as the unfractionated heparin, but they provide a more selective action. How? Because they fail to affect thrombin. That means low molecular weight heparin only inhibit the activity of factor 10, which is required for the activation of thrombin. But it cannot inhibit the activity of thrombin. So already I told you, any drug that inhibit the activity of thrombin, that drug activity can be monitored. But if a drug unable to inhibit the activity of thrombin, we cannot measure its concentration. So here you can see the APTT test does not reliably measure the anticoagulant effect of low molecular weight heparin and fondaparinux because it's not going to inhibit the or affect the activity of thrombin. So this is a potential problem, especially in renal failure in which their clearance may be decreased. So clinical uses: deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, acute myocardial infarction, can be used in combination with thrombolytics for revascularization, used in combination with glycoprotein 2B3A inhibitors. This is one of the group of antiplatelet drugs during angioplasty and placement of coronary stents. Heparin is the drug of choice when an anticoagulant must be used in pregnancy because it does not cross the placental barrier. In the beginning, I told you why it is unable to cross the placental barrier because of its high molecular weight. What are the toxicity? Increased bleeding is the most common adverse effects of heparin. Unfractionated heparin causes, this is important point, unfractionated heparin or causes moderate transient thrombocytopenia in many patients and severe thrombocytopenia and thrombosis, that is called heparin-induced thrombocytopenia, in a small percentage of patients. So fortunately, severe thrombocytopenia in a small number of patients, but it can cause moderate transient thrombocytopenia in many patients. Low molecular weight heparin and fondaparinux are less likely to cause this immune-mediated thrombocytopenia. So this is one of the another reason of we are using commonly low molecular weight heparin in our clinical setup. Prolonged use of unfractionated heparin is associated with osteoporosis. Now the second group, because in anticoagulants we have heparin, we have direct thrombin inhibitors, we have warfarin. The direct thrombin inhibitors are based on proteins made by Heredo medicinalis, the medicinal leech. Lapiridine is the recombinant form of the leech protein heredin. Daceridine and bivaleuridine are modified forms of heredin. Argatroban is a small molecule with a short half-life. All drugs are administered parenterally. Mechanism of action of these direct thrombin inhibitors: the protein analogs of lapiridine bind simultaneously to the active site of thrombin and to thrombin substrate. Bivaleuridine also inhibits platelet activation, and this is one of the drugs that is commonly asked in the exam, especially for students who are interested to appear in USMLE exam. This question is asked related to this bivaleuridine, direct thrombin inhibitor, but also it can inhibit platelet activation. Clinical uses of direct thrombin inhibitors. Direct thrombin inhibitors are used as alternatives to heparin, primarily in patients with heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. So this is how the question is asked. Yeah, a patient and having a history of thrombocytopenia, and you are required to give anticoagulants. So, which one of the following drug can be given safely? And they can mention one of the direct thrombin inhibitors like ergatroban, like bivaleuridine. So, this is the important point that you must remember. Bivaleuridine is also used in combination with aspirin during percutaneous coronary angioplasty. Like unfractionated heparin, the action of these drugs is monitored with the APTT laboratory test. Why? Because it inhibits the activity of thrombin. That point already I told you. Toxicity: like other anticoagulants, the direct thrombin inhibitors can cause bleeding. One of the problems that we don't have any antidote in case of toxicity. So prolonged infusion of lapiridine can induce antibodies that form a complex with lapiridine and prolong its action, and it can induce anaphylactic reaction. There is another group, direct factor 10 inhibitor. So in the beginning, that is why I was focusing on that slide that I showed you in the beginning, that whether intrinsic pathway or extrinsic pathway. Both pathway ultimately they has to produce or activate factor 10. And this factor 10 is basically responsible to activate prothrombin into thrombin, and thrombin then ultimately forms the clot due to activation of fibrinogen into fibrin. So this is the group in which the drug that can directly inhibit the activity of factor 10, so we can stop the subsequent reactions, right? So examples at this level, at least you must remember the examples of this group. Rivaroxaban and other Zabans used to prevent DVTs after knee or hip surgery, prevention of stroke and systemic embolism in non-valvular atrial fibrillation. It doesn't require monitoring of PT or INR. There is another group under the heading of anticoagulants, warfarin and other coumarin anticoagulants. So in exam, if in a BCQ, if anyone asks, okay, which one of the following related to coumarin group, so you will pick the warfarin, right? So warfarin, coumarin, same. Because in coumarin group, only warfarin. There are different compounds in coumarin derivatives, but only warfarin produces activity clinically, right? So warfarin and other coumarin anticoagulants are small lipid-soluble molecules. Unlike heparin that we already discussed, high molecular weight, large molecule. So again, there is a important clinical point to know this characteristic feature, because a small lipid soluble molecule so easily and rapidly crosses the placental barrier. So that is why warfarin cannot be given during pregnancy. Readily absorbed after oral administration, warfarin is highly bound to plasma protein, more than 99%, and its elimination depends on metabolism by cytochrome P450 enzyme. Again, this point is very important, because any drug having the tendency of binding with protein, plasma protein, increase chances of drug-drug interactions, because any other drug that has stronger binding affinity than warfarin, so it will displaces warfarin from its binding site. So what will happen? The level of warfarin will raise in the blood, and it may produce the toxicity. This is the important clinical point. Now the mechanism of action, because there are certain clotting factors, uh, and their synthesis is vitamin K dependent. These clotting factors are synthesized in the liver in the presence of vitamin K. And which form of vitamin K? Reduced form of vitamin K. Reduced form of vitamin K is necessary for the synthesis of these clotting factors. And clotting factors are 2, 7, 9, 10. So these are the clotting factors which are synthesized in the liver in the presence of vitamin K. Which form of vitamin K? Reduced form of vitamin K. So this warfarin basically inhibit the activity of vitamin K epoxide reductase enzyme, which is responsible to convert vitamin K epoxide into reduced form of vitamin K, which is necessary for the process of carboxylation, right, of precursor clotting factors. So when there is no availability of reduced vitamin K, there is no synthesis of clotting factors. Now again, I'm repeating in detail mechanism. Warfarin and other coumarin interfere with the normal post-translational modification of clotting factors in the liver, a process that depends on adequate supply of reduced vitamin K. The drug inhibits vitamin K epoxide reductase, which normally converts vitamin K epoxide to reduced vitamin K. The vitamin K dependent factors include thrombin, which is factor 2, and factor 7, 9, and 10. An anticoagulant effect is observed only after sufficient time has passed for elimination of the normal preform factor, because the clotting factors have half-lives of 8 to 60 hours in the plasma. This is important point. This is important point. When we start the therapy warfarin, It takes time to produce its activity, anticoagulant activity. Why? Why this slow onset of action? Because warfarin basically inhibits the synthesis of clotting factors. Synthesis of clotting factors. The clotting factors which are already synthesized, they are present in the plasma, will produce its activity till they are going to be excreted out from the body. Because warfarin, okay, when we have started this therapy with warfarin, okay, new synthesis of clotting factors we have stopped. But the clotting factors already synthesized, they are present in the blood and they will produce its activity till they are going to be eliminated. So complete elimination takes around 60 hours. So there are different clotting factors having different half-life, elimination half-life. So this is one of the reasons. The main point is warfarin inhibit the new synthesis of clotting factors, but the clotting factors which are already synthesized, they will produce the effect till they are going to be excreted out from the body. The action of warfarin can be reversed with vitamin K, but recovery requires the synthesis of new normal clotting factors and is therefore slow, again 6 to 24 hours. More rapid reversal can be achieved by a transfusion with fresh or frozen plasma that contains normal clotting factors. And the effect of warfarin is monitored by the prothrombin time test. Again, this is a laboratory test that we can use to monitor the warfarin activity. Warfarin is used for chronic anticoagulation in all previously for heparin except in pregnant women. And already we have discussed small molecule, highly lipid soluble, so it can cross the placental barrier. Bleeding is the most important adverse effects of warfarin, and warfarin is contraindicated in pregnancy because it causes bone defects and hemorrhage in the developing fetus. Warfarin has a narrow therapeutic window. Its involvement in drug interaction is of major concern, and already we have discussed this point, right? Because its metabolism is cytochrome P450 enzyme dependent. So the drugs which are going to induce cytochrome P450 enzyme like carbamazepine and phenytoin, rifampin, barbiturates, it will increase its warfarin clearance and reduce the anticoagulant effect of a given dose. Similarly, if uh, we are using cytochrome P450 inhibitors like amiodarone, selective serotonin uptake inhibitors, cimetidine, so they are going to reduce warfarin's clearance and increase the anticoagulant effect of a given dose. So increase chances of toxicity. So this is the important slide, and we are going to differentiate between warfarin and heparin. And already we have discussed all the points. You just go through this slide, like heparin, large acidic polysaccharide polymers, warfarin, small lipid soluble molecule. We administer heparin parenterally, like intravenously or subcutaneously, but we avoid to give intramuscular injection to avoid the risk of hematoma. Warfarin can be given orally. Side of action: heparin acts on preform clotting factors which are present in the blood. Warfarin acts in the liver. Onset of action is rapid. It takes time. Mechanism of action already we have discussed. How we can monitor the activity of both drug and antidote, protamine for heparin, and unfractionated protamine reversal of low molecular weight heparin is incomplete. Vitamin K, plasma prothrombin complex concentrate that we can use as antidote in case of warfarin toxicity. Okay, uses and use in pregnancy, right? We can use during pregnancy heparin, but we cannot use or should be avoided during pregnancy warfarin. Now the next group is thrombolytic agents. The thrombolytic drugs used most commonly are endogenous tissue plasminogen activator. Examples are alteplase, tenecteplase, and retiplase. a protein synthesized by streptococci, that is streptokinase. And all drugs, like whether we are using antiplase or streptokinase, given intravenous. Mechanism of action: plasmin is an endogenous fibrinolytic enzyme that degrades clots by splitting fibrin into fragments. The thrombolytic enzymes catalyze the conversion of the inactive precursors. Plasminogen 2 is converted into plasmin, and plasmin basically uh, break down the fibrinogen, right? So degradation product or fibrin split products forms. So it acts on fibrin and try to dissolve the fibrin clot. Now, the one by one, the example of thrombolytic agents. Tissue plasminogen activator is an enzyme that directly converts plasminogen to plasmin. Examples: alteplase is normal human plasminogen activator. Ateplase and tenecteplase are mutated form of human tissue plasminogen activator with similar effects but a slightly faster onset of action and longer duration of action. Streptokinase is still clinically still we are using streptokinase in our cardiac units, right? Streptokinase is obtained from bacterial cultures. Streptokinase forms a complex with endogenous plasminogen, and this complex rapidly converts free plasminogen into plasmin. Streptokinase doesn't show selectivity for fibrin-bound plasminogen. Clinical uses: as an alternative to percutaneous coronary angioplasty. We are talking about thrombolytic agent, clinical use, right? So, as an alternative to percutaneous coronary angioplasty in the emergency treatment of coronary artery thrombosis, can promptly recanalize the occluded coronary vessel if treatment is started within 6 hours. In patient with ischemic stroke, if tissue plasminogen activator is used within 3 hours of the first symptoms, will show significant better clinical outcome. Cerebral hemorrhage must be positively ruled out before such use. You will have to confirm whether this is the ischemic stroke or uh, hemorrhage, cerebral hemorrhage, right? Also used in case of severe pulmonary embolism. Toxicity: bleeding is the most important hazard. Cerebral hemorrhage is the most serious manifestation. Streptokinase, a bacterial protein, can evoke the production of antibodies that cause it to lose its effectiveness or induce severe allergic reactions on subsequent therapy. And patients who have had streptococcal infections may have preformed antibodies to the drug. So in that patient, if we administer streptokinase, would be useless because antibodies are present that will break down the drug molecule. The recombinant forms of tissue plasminogen activator are not subject to this problem because they are human proteins. Now the third group: antiplatelet drugs. Platelet aggregation. Already we have discussed in the first slide. Initial response in response to vascular injury or damaged vessel. Initially, vessel try to constrict, try to stop bleeding. Then platelet aggregation. So we can say platelet aggregation is the first step towards the formation of proper clot, which is ultimately formed due to fibrin, right? So platelet aggregation contributes to the clotting process and is especially important in clots that form in the arterial circulation. Platelet aggregation is triggered by prostaglandin thromboxane, adenosine diphosphate, thrombin, and fibrin. Platelet aggregation is inhibited by cyclic AMP and prostaglandin, that is prostacyclin, because prostaglandin thromboxane promote platelet aggregation and prostaglandin prostacyclin that inhibit platelet aggregation. So there are three important compounds: cyclic AMP, prostacyclin, and adenosine. They prevent platelet aggregation, right? Classification of antiplatelet drugs. Antiplatelet drugs like NSAID and in NSAID, we have aspirin, the key drug, and number two, glycoprotein 2B3A receptor inhibitor. These are the receptors present on platelets, and due to this receptor, platelet aggregates towards each other. And we have example abciximab, darofiban, and eptifibatide. These are the examples of glycoprotein 2B3 receptor inhibitors. Antagonist of adenosine diphosphate receptors, clopidogrel. This is the drug that is being used extensively in our clinical wards, cardiac wards. Inhibitor of phosphodiesterase 3 enzyme inhibitors, dipyridamole and tilostazol. So these are the general classification, and from the exam point of view, you must know the classification. This is important. Now, clinical uses. Aspirin is used to prevent further infarcts in person who have had one or more myocardial infarcts, and may also reduce the incidence of first infarcts. The drug is used extensively to prevent transient ischemic attack, ischemic stroke, and other thrombotic events, right? But very much effective. But the major problem related to aspirin is the ulcer. So this is very important concept related to this. The second very important group, glycoprotein 2B3 inhibitors, prevent re-stenosis after coronary angioplasty and are used in acute coronary syndromes. Clopidogrel and ticlopidine are effective in preventing TIAs and ischemic stroke, especially in patients who cannot tolerate aspirin. And clopidogrel is routinely used to prevent thrombosis in patients who have received a coronary artery stent. Dipyridamole is approved as an adjunct to warfarin in the prevention of thrombosis in those with cardiac valve replacement, and has been used in combination with aspirin for secondary prevention of ischemic stroke. Restazole is used to treat intermittent claudication, a manifestation of peripheral arterial disease. So this is all about the anticoagulant, thrombolytics, and antiplatelet drugs. I've tried my best to summarize the important points related to uh, exam point of view. So we have started the lecture lately because our host was not available due to some reason. So this is one of the reasons to start the lecture late. But I was waiting there on time. Hello.
जी सर, आप चैट पढ़ लें, शायद के सवाल बच्चों ने किया हो तो रिप्लाई कर दें।
अच्छा, इसमें ये कह रहे हैं कि योर वॉइस इज वेरी लो, बट सुनी तो जा रही थी ना।
वॉइस तो हल्की सी लो थी बट क्लियर थी, कोई इशू नहीं है।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है ठीक है।
एक सवाल आया
जी
बच्चे का, अरीशा नवाज का, आप कर लें
हाँ
उनसे।
जी जी। Hello. Yes, the low molecular weight heparin doesn't process the placenta. Molecular weight is low, but the because it's a polysaccharide compound, right? So polysaccharide compound cannot process the placental barrier. So okay, having low molecular weight, but due to charge compound, it cannot process the placental barrier. So this is one of the reasons. Because warfarin, two important points: small molecule as well as lipid soluble, uncharged compound. But this, okay, low molecular weight heparin, but charged compound. So in spite of having low molecular weight, it cannot process the placental barrier, right? Okay, sir. ठीक है. Is there any other question? चलें. Okay, sir. मेरे हाथ से अब क्वेश्चन नहीं है.
ठीक है सर, मैं एंड कर रहा हूँ।